remembering the presence of God and Gurus in and around, within, in the breath. ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भं श्यामाचरणमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मैति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. Bowing down to masters, bowing down to Sri Guruji, bowing down to all of you. Thank you, and I'm grateful and thankful to you that we are able to join together to discuss, to continue our discussion on the Holy Bhagavad Gita. We have finished discussing almost 1.5 chapters, and we'll continue today. So before that, we'll chant the Gita Dhyanam, one sloka of Gita Dhyanam. So if you have Gita Dhyanam book, or you can just listen to this. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrutavarshiniam Bhagavatim Astadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandathami Bhagavat Gite Bhavadveshinim. Seeking the blessings of God and Gurus, seeking the blessings of Divine Mother Gita, seeking the blessings of all of you. We'll start. Thank you, Dibya Supanis, for joining. So we have discussed in last two classes. We discussed what was the condition because of which the war came into effect. When they came together to fight, what happened to Arjuna? We discussed that. Then we also briefly discussed what are the doubts that came to Arjuna, because of which he started justifying that why the war is not a right choice. And then he told Lord that it looks like I am confused and I do not know exactly what to be done. And hence, can you please guide me? It is not possible for me to fight. This is where briefly we discussed. Again, it is important to remember that though it is an external event we are discussing, there is internal ramification because of which we should always put ourselves in the shoes of Arjuna. That way, it would be easier for us to grasp certain aspects of this discussion. So, continuing from yesterday's discussion, so Arjuna says that, "O Lord, it is difficult for me to fathom a life where I have killed my elders and I'm enjoying the riches that is blood soaked. That means it has happened because killings have happened. So I am not in a position to know whether war is right decision or not, whether fighting is proper, whether fight is the right way to go forward or not." And then he says, also I am not sure whether I am going to win or lose. So all this um, has confused my mind, and I feel weak. I feel like I don't know exactly whether I should be here or not. And I surrender to you. Please treat me as a disciple and teach me what would be best for me. I can't fight. So this is the last message Arjuna gave before Lord started giving advice. So it is critical to understand this because we briefly talked about it yesterday. Without confusion, we will not go to a teacher. If somebody is clear and sure, there is no need of a teacher. Additional to that, if we know that clarity is not there within me, then we can go to a teacher and say, look, I'm not clear. But if we have an inclination of something, suppose let us say we are confused of option 1 versus option 2, and we go to a teacher, I am confused between option 1 and option 2, but I would like to do option 2, then that beats the purpose of going to a teacher. So a disciple should always approach the teacher saying that within my capacity, I have tried to analyze this option versus that option. And I have come to conclusion that I really don't know which is right for me, which is more auspicious for me. So he has used what would be Shreya. Shreya means what would be more, what would be good for me. And so I am going to a teacher to tell, can you help me to go in the right direction? Then what happens with this dejected state of seeing this dejection in Arjuna, helplessness state, cowardly state of Arjuna, and seeing this false justification, Lord smiles and Lord says, it looks like you are crying for people for whom you are not supposed to cry. Why? Because you are worried that people are going to die. But don't you know that in any day, someday they are going to die? And if we believe in the theory of karma, then the death is sometimes has happened already. And it is just going to, you are going to see it. So you are really crying for people who are already dead. If they are supposed to be die, they're supposed to die, then they are already dead. You are crying for nothing. Then Lord says that you should know that in life, difficulties and goodness or happiness will come. You should know how to tolerate it. But these are some gentle advice Lord has given before going to some profound things Lord is going to express in chapter 2. So Lord has given, I'm summarizing because it is not possible to go verse by verse. Lord has given three major instructions and has elaborated it. The first instructions Lord gives is the highest knowledge a guru can give to a disciple. Lord says that there was never a time when you were not there, when I was not there, or these people that are standing in front of you were not there. There would never be a time when you will not be there, when I will not be there, these people will not be there. That means what you see now is just a little drama, you can say, or he says, Vyakta manifestation. But before that we existed, now we exist, and after that also will exist. That means we are eternal. So this is something, first time, this is the Upanishadic, highest Upanishadic teachings, where a disciple is told that you are Atman. So there are four Mahavakyas the masters have given: Pragyanam Brahma, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. So here the Lord is telling Tattvamasi. That means the divinity is you itself. You are Atman. And then Lord is elaborating the definition of this idea. We should understand this, that when the Lord is giving this idea that you are eternal, it is not that like you can say you are eternal. It means actually nothing. You go and tell somebody you are eternal, person, any one of us will listen to that idea and probably will not get any idea out of it. So a master said that look at the modern teachings. A disciple goes to a teacher. The teacher says, "You are eternal." He said, "Sir, what is eternal?" He said, "Eternal means infinite." He said, "Sir, again, what is infinity?" You see, so like that, he uses some words that is again confusing. Because why it is confusing is because it is not comprehensible. Infinity is not comprehensible because there is nothing we know that is infinity. Eternal is not comprehensible. Then, uh, so this Abhinashi, these are right words. So the masters have taken tremendous amount of precision that before they define this word, they take us in a short, slow journey to make sure that even if we don't understand it, we have some level of comprehension. So they say infinity like ocean, infinity like sky. We know from imagination that what infinity could be. And the master says, that is it. It's only a notion that we are giving. So Lord says that two inst- three instructions. I'll first tell two of them. Lord says, first, this body of yours is ephemeral, is temporary. That means it was not there few years ago. It is there today. It won't be there tomorrow. Be very clear about it. Then Lord says, know that again within you there is something. Let us call it self or Atman. That self or Atman was there yesterday, was there before, has been there, is there, and will be there. These are the two critical instructions Lord gives. And He says, this self within, these are clarifications. Lord says, this self within cannot be destroyed, cannot be cut into pieces. It is unmanifested. It cannot be soaked into water. It cannot be mixed with mud. It cannot be dried. It cannot be moved. So, like this, Lord has given and there are many of them. Lord has given all these descriptions just to give little bit of clarity of what self could be. Very well knowing that it is not possible to give that idea. Because somebody asked, he said, why it is not possible? I said, let us think about it. We will comprehend through what? Let us say that I would like to see something. I will see through what? See through my eyes. My eyes will have comprehension. The visibility of eye is there with certain extent. You can see a little more, little less depending upon the eyesight. But eventually there would be some kind of periphery that's going to develop through eyes. Similarly, the mind. Eye is matter. Similarly, mind is matter. Comprehension, even if we do through mind, yes, it is vast. It is much more than the eyes can see, the sense organs can experience. But at the end of the day, mind is matter. The comprehensive capability of the mind is also limited. The moment we say that I comprehend Lord, then we have um, goes against the principle of Lord being infinite. Because infinity cannot be comprehended, hence it is called infinity. So the Lord has given all this notion, these are only notion, to say that look, these are the some characteristics I am telling you, what we call as self, and just to give an idea. Then Lord says, even if I am telling you all this, some people are surprised, astonished to understand this, to listen to this, to think of this. But in reality, nobody knows. Nobody knows about this. It brings us astonishment. It brings us, what is this? What it can be? What is that thing that cannot be soaked, that cannot be dried, and things like that? Then Lord says, which is the third instructions Lord gives. Lord gives a little bit of instruction about the body temple. He says, this body has come, this body is there, this body will go. Then Lord said something extremely important, because this is the knowledge. The knowledge is that that is something within which indestructible. Then Lord says that without worrying, if you do your duty without worrying about loss or winning, without worrying about pain or joy, if you do your duty, then it would be easier for you to understand this self. So he says that do your duty properly without worrying about what the result would be. We'll discuss that more in chapter 3. Then Lord says, this is a path forward to realize what I'm going to tell you. Because if Guru is giving us knowledge, then eventually a question arises. Well, give us knowledge is fine. Tell us how to implement it. That is more important. Much more important than that is tell us if somebody has already implemented it. That is a very esoteric, fundamental, good idea. And suppose the master is telling this has to be implemented like this, and the master himself does not implement it. Or I don't see anybody who has implemented it. There is no way I'll be inspired to implement it. It's not possible. So Lord has given these three things. Then he says, one of the crux of chapter 2, which has been discussed by many masters. He says, what I told you is knowledge. Now I'm going to tell you how to apply that knowledge. And the one of the fundamental way to apply that knowledge is that know this idea that you have a right and fundamental duty to do action, any activities, but you have no right on the result of that action. At the same time, you cannot stay away from the action. So three instructions have been given. You have to do your duty and you have a right to do it. You can change it as much as you want. It's up to you. Please be very clear that result is not in your control and hence you should not get affected by it. Suppose you say, we'll discuss that. Then Lord says, with these two, don't get into this complacency that I will not do any action, because there will be consequences of not doing action. So Lord is very clear about it. So there are, a spiritual master has given three ways to do it. He says, not working is tamasic, working and expecting result is rajasic, and working joyfully because of as duty is sattvic. And sattvic work only can lead us to purification of the mind. Purification of mind can take us slowly to the idea of the understanding of infinity or being in the infinite. Lord says that renounce the result because the result is not in your control. More than that, actually, in the chapter 18, there is a little bit of elaboration has been given. It is said that so we do an action and there is a result. Let us analyze it. Is it possible that we can do an action without having a result in mind? Is it possible? Is it possible that you are cooking and you are not expecting that there would be some food would be ready? So there is, the master says that it is not what exactly Lord is telling. Lord is not telling is that go and cook and don't expect food is going to be cooked. So I cooked and food got burnt. So what? That is not Lord is telling, because that would that would create major issues. That I do, okay, I did whatever I could do, it doesn't work, why I don't care. No, no, no. It is much more than that. The master is telling, first know how the principle is working. The principle is working like this. When we are working, it is me only working. So they say there are 5 things that is responsible to bring the result of an action. In the chapter 18, verse number, I don't remember, probably 48 or something. Adhisthanam, where the action is being done. Tathakarta, who is doing the action. Karanam, how the action is being done. What is the instruments that is being used to perform the action. Chesta, how much effort has been put into the action. These four is more or less in my control, more or less. Some of them a little bit difficult to manage. However, there is a fifth element, Lord says, that is called daiva, which we call as luck, grace, blessings, whichever way we take it. There is a fifth factor. Not only it is completely out of my control, it is out of my knowledge. That means there is no way I can know what that fate, luck, blessings, grace would be. So it is not that it is not only in my it is not only my beyond my control, it is beyond my knowledge. And because of that factor, I can never know my result. Master says that when you expect result, there are four possibilities. It fulfills the result like you expected, you got it. I expect, suppose I went to an exam, I expect 70%, I got 70%. Lower than that, I got 50%. Higher than that, I got 90%. Three possibilities. There is a fourth possibility. I may fail. So these four possibilities exist. Masters are telling you that because through the principle you come to know that there is a fifth factor in the equation because of which you will never know what the result would be. Hence, for you to be get upset or happy about the result is your foolishness. So go ahead, be fool. But that's the fact. So Ishwara has been called as Phaladata, that God is responsible to give or bless the result because that is the fifth factor that the Lord is talking about. So Lord says that do activities knowingly that you have almost full responsibility and control over your action. But when the result will come, know that there is a factor that is unknown to you beyond your control. Knowing this, don't get worried by the result. Expect fair enough, but don't get worried by it. If it comes below, okay. If it comes above, okay. If it comes equal, okay. If it comes opposite, it's also okay. This should not affect. This has been called as samavastha or the state of equanimity. Lord had said that this is verily the only way, the, the state of equanimity of the mind is the only way to bring clarity to the mind and thereby taking the mind where comprehending the principle of the self is possible. When this discussion has happened, question has arisen, a question has come to Arjuna's mind that Lord, is it possible to have this kind of attributes? Is there a person? Are there people who are manifesting that in their life, or it is only theory? He has asked, "Can you tell me if I see somebody, how do I know that this person is manifesting this quality? How that person who has internalized this idea or established in this state of understanding, how does that person sit, walk? What are the characteristics of that person?" So basically, what has happened in the first principle, Lord has given the knowledge. In the second idea, Lord said that how to manifest it, how to implement it in your life. In the third state, Lord is answering that how do you know if somebody is manifesting in their life? So these are some of the characteristics we should see, and these are the characteristics. It is said this is called Adarsha Gurumurti or the ideal masters. So when we are seeking a master, these are the things we should look for. Very clearly, Lord says, he should be desireless. That means he should not be selfish. He should not do things for himself, his own, for his own pleasure of sense organs. He is content within. That means his content within his own, like not he's not content because of something external is happening. He has no internal agitation of the mind in sorrows or happiness. He has no attachment. He has no fear. He has no anger. His anger fear and attachment has been destroyed. I'll tell you, it's a personal thing. One day, I was traveling with Guruji. I just casually asked, I said, does fear come to you? And I asked, not that I was analyzing, because I said, how it is possible that somebody can go beyond fear? So I asked this question. And Guruji immediately said, not from my childhood also, I never had fear. As if like an innocent child is explaining. Like you would ask your brother, do you like sweet? He said, yeah, I like sweet. Similarly, I asked this casually, and an immediate answer was that from my childhood, I have never had any fear. Baba said like that. The masters do not have fear. It's very clearly written. He should not have any selfish business. He should have equal mindset for sadness and happiness. And one beautiful thing which we must look at in a teacher is, and the example has been given of a tortoise. A tortoise has legs and head and everything. It has the capacity to withdraw it. It has a capacity to manifest it also. A spiritual master has the capacity to withdraw the sense organs and also manifest the sense organs equally in the best way. That means a spiritual master can withdraw the sense organs completely and can manifest the sense organs completely. Withdraw the sense organs when selfishness comes, manifest it when it is for others. And the master says that we should try as much as possible to use our sense organs like that for happiness of the sense organs. Withdraw the sense organs, withdraw the mind. For serving, utilize the sense organs. So let us say that if you do something if we do something using our hand, it's going to be very helpful. I like it. Then withdraw. If I do something using my hand, it would be helpful to God, God's work, Guru's work, or society. They say maximize the utilization of the hand. Inwardly happy, spiritual master should be inwardly happy and joyful. And another thing is that his desires are not getting manifested. His desires are within, and he has lost selfish desire. He has lost doership. He is not hankering for anything, and he gets peace, and there is no delusion in his or her mind. And that is how a spiritual master lives. That is the characteristic of a spiritual master. And this is the state of realized people. I'll take 1 minute, happy minute maybe, before I end. This particular chapter, we finished Sankhya Yoga today of the chapter 2. I was hoping to enter into chapter 3. What is the spiritual aspect of Sankhya Yoga inwardly is Sankhya comes from the word Sankhya, means number. Time is endless, but we have a way to measure time. Our life is measured by the number of breaths we take. The masters say that we take approximately 15 breaths a minute. That converts to 21,600 breaths in a day. So the masters say that that is called ajapa japa, or the constant chanting of the mantra. Through spiritual practice, when the breath is reducing, when the Ida and Pingala are uniting and moving, and the breath is moving in the Susumna, that is what is called yoga, and that is the union of the numbers. And that is what Lord is telling is the highest knowledge, where because when the breath calms down, then the knowledge of the self is revealed. And that is what this chapter is all about. So we'll end here. We'll go to elaboration of Karma Yoga, or the chapter 3, next Wednesday. With that, please give us a minute and we'll organize so that we can do some chanting. We'll see you in a minute. Welcome back again. So, we will sing. I'll introduce ourselves. Most of you know who are here. Myself is Swami Sahajananda, Swami Omkaranandji, Brahmachari Prakashji, and Jagannathji. Thank you for coming. Today, Swamiji is going to sing one of the very popular song of Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath is written by a great saint from Odisha, who is very revered by Sri Guruji as well. His name is Thakur Abhirama Paramahansa. I would love to translate this after the song, and this is one of the things that we used to hear in our childhood. So I'm very excited that he has decided to sing this.
शोभा बड़ सिंहार बेश हे राधा ईसा शोभा बड़ सिंहार शोभा बड़ सिंहार बेश हे राधा ईसा नृत्यन्ति देवदासी नृत्यन्ति सदा सजा तुलसी सदा नृत्यन्ति देवदासी सदा सजा तुलसी नृत्यन्ति पहुणिबे कमला विलास हे राधा ईसा शोभा बड़ सिंगार बेश शोभा बड़ सिंगार बेश हे राधा ईसा कुंटिया डाक देना कुंटिया डाक देना कुंटिया डाक पहुड़ा बेड़ा हेला पहुड़ा बेड़ा कुंटिया डाक देना पहुड़ा बेड़ा हेला पहुड़ा बेड़ा हेला कुंटिया श्री अंगे लागिला अळस हे राधा शोभा बड़ सिंगार वेश शोभा बड़ सिंगार वेश हे राधा शोभा बड़ तेत्रिस कोटि देवे तेत्रिस आसी मिलिले सर्वे आसी तेत्रिस कोटि देवे आसी मिलिले सर्वे तेत्रिस आसी मिलिले सर्वे करिले जय जय घोष हे राधा शोभा बड़ सिंगार वेश हे राधा अभिराम दिए डाक अभिराम दिए डाक अभिराम उठ मरुद पदक उठ अभिराम दिए डाक उठ मरुद पदक अभिराम विभव ज्ञाने होई तो हे राधा विभव शोभा बड़ सिंगार वेश हे राधा नृत्यन्ति देवदासी सदा सजा तुलसी नृत्यन्ति पहुड़िबे कमला विलास हे राधा शोभा बड़ सिंगार राधा हे राधा हे राधा हरि हरि गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि 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 गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव मुकुंद माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव जय माधव हे माधव हे माधव जय माधव हे माधव हरे माधव हे माधव हरि हरि गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद माधव बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद माधव माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद गोविंद बोल रे हरि हरि गोविंद माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव माधव मुकुंद गोविंद बोल रे माधव गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे गोविंद बोल रे गोपाल बोल रे जय माधव 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 जय जय माधव जय माधव जय माधव जय माधव जय माधव बोले सद्गुरुदेव भगवान की। ओम त्र्यंबकं यजामहे
त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे
सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
मृत्युर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
ॐ त्र्यंबकं यजामहे
ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे
सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
मृत्युर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
ॐ त्र्यंबकं यजामहे
ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे
सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात्
मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
मृत्युर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदम्
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं
पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति
So this is a little bit difficult song to translate. I'll just do one or two verses. So Lord Jagannatha has different types of attires he adorns every in different seasons. One of them is called Boda Singhara Vesa, is the great adornment. So the poet is telling that the beauty is immeasurable of that particular adornment, and there are celestial dancers, and there is a bed of tulsi that has been uh, put together, and Kamala Vilasa means, oh husband of Mother Lakshmi, you are going to come, and you feel lazy now because Lord Jagannath in our local tradition is considered as if one of our own. He said that you have started feeling little lazy to go and sleep. Different deities are coming to meet you, and they're telling victory to you, victory to you. The poet is telling his name. He said, I am calling you, O Lord, O the Lord of my heart. You become Vibhava Gyane. Gyane means knowledge, wealth of knowledge. You stay in from my heart, remaining in my heart. Be content, make me content with the wealth of knowledge. This is a rough meaning. Uh, Thakur is a great master, so it is a little impossible for me. I just wanted to tell one beautiful thing I forgot today in the class. There is one name of Lord Arjuna is called as Madhava. Today we sang the name. The meaning of Madhava is Lord Vishnu or Krishna has been called as Madhava. Ma means mother, Dhava means husband. So, husband of Divine Mother. Divine Mother here is Prakriti. Husband is the one who is exercising the power over the Prakriti. So, Lord here is addressed as the one who is the Lord of Prakriti. So, that is what the Madhava means. So, with this, uh, our heartfelt gratitude that you could join us. It is actually blessings for all of us to be here together. So, on behalf of everyone of us here, our gratitude, and on behalf of everyone who listened to Swamiji's song, our gratefulness and thank you, Swamiji, and others. Thanking Swamiji for joining, Swami Divyasar Pananji for to be part of this discussion, and Sampunanma and Frederick Baba and Matt Baba. for conducting this. Thank you again. May the blessings of God and Masters guide us and protect us all. If we have done any mistakes, please forgive. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Thank you very much.